Have you ever heard of something so terrifying that it could break your mind? Something so dangerous that it has to be locked away from the world forever? Well, what if I told you that not everything in the back rooms, not everything behind those locked doors is out to hurt you? Today, I want to tell you about something different. Something that shouldn't exist in a place designed to contain nightmares. This is the story of SCP-999. But the people who work with it, every day, they call it the Tickle Monster. And trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why even in the darkest corners of the SCP Foundation, there's still room for hope. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're walking down a cold, sterile hallway. The kind of hallway where every footstep echoes, where the fluorescent lights hum just a little too loud, where you know, deep in your gut, that something unnatural is behind every door you pass. You're a researcher at the SCP Foundation. You've seen things that would make most people lose their minds. You've documented creatures that can end the world. You've watched good people die because they blinked at the wrong time or looked at something they shouldn't have. Every day is a battle against things that want to kill you, contain you, or worse, make you forget you ever existed. But today, you have a different assignment. Today, you're going to meet SCP-999. The door to its containment cell doesn't have the usual warning signs. No biohazard symbols, no armed guards standing watch, no keycard requirements. Just a simple door with an observation window and a sign that reads, "Currently roaming." You peer through the window and you see it. A large blob of orange slime, about the size of a small car, sitting in the middle of a simple room. The room doesn't look like a containment cell. It looks like a playroom. There are toys scattered around, bowls of candy, crayons and paper, a small bed in the corner. And the blob? It's bouncing, actually bouncing up and down like an excited puppy that just heard its owner come home. You open the door and step inside. The blob immediately notices you. It makes a sound, something between a gurgle and a squeal, like the happiest sound you've ever heard. And then it starts moving toward you. Now, your training kicks in. You've been taught to never trust an SCP, no matter how harmless it looks. You tense up, ready to run. But then, something strange happens. As the blob gets closer, you start to smell something. It's not the chemical smell of the facility. It's not the smell of death and decay you've grown used to. It smells like chocolate chip cookies fresh from the oven. No, wait, it smells like your grandmother's perfume. No, it's the smell of a summer day at the beach. The smell keeps changing and you realize something incredible. It smells like happiness, like every good memory you've ever had, all at once. The blob reaches you and gently nudges against your leg. The moment it touches you, everything changes. You feel it immediately, a warmth spreading through your body. Not a physical warmth, but something deeper. It's like every worry you've been carrying just melts away. The stress of your job, the nightmares you've been having, the fear that lives in the back of your mind every single day, all of it just disappears. And then you start to smile. Not because you're trying to, but because you can't help it. For the first time in months, maybe years, you feel genuinely happy. The blob makes that gurgling sound again, and before you know it, it's wrapping around you. Not tight, not threatening, just like the world's best hug. And then the tickling starts. You start to laugh, really laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from deep in your belly, the kind you haven't experienced since you were a kid. The blob seems to love this. It bounces around you, making happy sounds, tickling you more. You try to say stop, but you're laughing too hard. Tears are streaming down your face, but they're good tears. Happy tears. The blob finally notices and immediately backs off, contracting into itself and making a sound like a whimpering dog, as if it's apologizing for going too far. You catch your breath and smile at it, letting it know everything's okay. The blob bounces happily again and slides over to a bowl of candy, offering it to you. This is SCP-999, the Tickle Monster. And it might be the most remarkable thing the SCP Foundation has ever found. Let me tell you the official description. SCP-999 appears to be a large, amorphous, gelatinous mass of translucent orange slime. It weighs about 120 pounds, about 54 kilograms, and has a consistency similar to peanut butter. When it's resting, it forms into a dome shape, about 2 meters wide and 1 meter tall. But here's where it gets interesting. The creature's size and shape are completely changeable. It can squeeze itself down to just 2 centimeters thick to slide under doors. It can stretch and mold itself into any shape it wants. And it uses this ability for one purpose: to play. Simply touching SCP-999's surface causes an immediate mild euphoria in anyone who makes contact. The longer you're exposed to it, the stronger this feeling gets. And the effect lasts long after you've separated from the creature. People who interact with it report feeling happier, more positive, for days afterwards. But SCP-999's favorite activity? Tickle wrestling. It will completely envelope a person from the neck down and tickle them until they ask it to stop. Though, and here's the funny part, it doesn't always immediately comply with this request. It's like a playful puppy that doesn't quite understand when playtime is over. The creature has never purposefully hurt anyone, not once, not ever. If someone does get hurt by accident, maybe it bounced too hard and knocked them over, SCP-999 immediately backs away. It contracts its body into a quivering mound and makes sounds similar to a whimpering dog, clearly apologizing for the accident. The creature feeds entirely on sweets and candy. Its favorites are chocolate, gummy candies, and particularly loves something called Necco wafers. When you give it candy, it absorbs the food directly into its body and bounces around making excited gurgling sounds. There's one important rule though: never, and I mean never, give SCP-999 caffeinated drinks. A researcher once gave it a can of cola. The creature bounced uncontrollably off the walls for hours, moving so fast it was just an orange blur. Then it spent the next several hours in what can only be described as the worst stomach ache imaginable. The researcher responsible was severely reprimanded. Now, you might be wondering, why is something so harmless locked up in the SCP Foundation? If it's so friendly, why contain it at all? The answer is complicated. The Foundation's motto is secure, contain, protect. And that protect part goes both ways. Yes, they protect the world from dangerous anomalies, but they also protect anomalies from the world. Imagine what would happen if the world found out about SCP-999. Governments would want to study it. Pharmaceutical companies would want to extract its slime to make drugs. Bad people would want to weaponize it or worse. So the Foundation keeps it safe, gives it a home. Lets it roam the facility freely and interact with personnel. Because here's the secret they discovered. SCP-999 doesn't just make people feel good in the moment, it actually helps them heal from mental trauma. The Foundation started testing this carefully. They brought in D-class personnel, people who are usually used for dangerous experiments, people who have been through terrible things, people suffering from severe depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, crippling anxiety. They let these people spend time with SCP-999. The results were incredible. People who hadn't smiled in years were laughing. People who had given up on life started talking about the future. The effect wasn't just temporary. Multiple interactions with SCP-999 led to lasting improvements in mental health. Some people reported their depression symptoms completely disappeared. The creature seems to have a special interest in people who are hurt or unhappy. It can somehow sense when someone is suffering and it seeks them out. When containment breaches happen, when alarms are blaring and dangerous, SCPs are loose in the facility, SCP-999 doesn't hide. It looks for personnel who are scared or injured and tries to comfort them. But the real test of SCP-999's nature came from an experiment that nobody expected would work, an experiment with the most dangerous creature in the entire Foundation. SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile. If you don't know about 682, let me give you the short version. It's a massive reptilian creature that is virtually indestructible and absolutely hates all life. It has survived being shot, burned, dissolved in acid, exposed to black holes, you name it. It adapts to every attempt to kill it and comes back stronger and angrier. The Foundation had tried hundreds of cross-tests to find something, anything, that could neutralize 682's homicidal tendencies. They brought in reality warpers, other dangerous SCPs, weapons that shouldn't exist. Nothing worked. The creature just got angrier with each attempt. Then someone had a crazy idea. What if they introduced 682 to SCP-999? Most of the researchers thought it was a death sentence for the Tickle Monster. 682 was huge, powerful, and mean. SCP-999 was a soft, squishy blob that had never faced any danger in its life. But they decided to try it anyway. Several highly trained agents carefully placed SCP-999 into 682's containment cell. The reptile was lying there, as it usually did, emanating pure hatred for everything around it. When it saw the orange blob enter, it didn't even look surprised. It had seen so many things brought in to torture it, to try to kill it, that one more weird creature meant nothing. The reptile spoke, and yes, it can talk. It said, "What is that?" Its voice was deep, filled with disgust and boredom. SCP-999 made its happy squealing sound and started bouncing excitedly, moving toward the giant creature like an overjoyed puppy meeting a new friend. 682 looked annoyed. It lifted one massive foot and stepped down, trying to crush SCP-999 beneath it. The researchers watching on cameras held their breath. But SCP-999 just squished down and oozed out from under the foot, completely unharmed. And then it did something nobody expected. It started crawling up 682's leg. The reptile tried to shake it off, clearly irritated. But SCP-999 kept climbing, moving between the creature's toes, up along its side, around its massive neck. And then it did what it does best. It started nuzzling against 682 with its pseudopod, giving it affection. The researchers couldn't believe what they were seeing. 682's face, usually frozen in an expression of pure hatred, started to change. The corner of its mouth twitched, then it curved upward. And then, for the first time in the entire history of SCP-682 being in containment, it smiled. A wide grin spread across the reptile's face, and it spoke again. "Feel so happy." The word came out slowly, like 682 was experiencing an emotion it had forgotten existed. "Happy," it repeated, and then it laughed. Not a cruel laugh, not a mocking laugh, a genuine, joyful laugh. The kind of laugh that comes from pure happiness. "Happy, happy, happy," 682 kept repeating, laughing more and more. The creature rolled onto its back, something it had never done before, and started slamming its massive tail on the floor with dangerous force, but not from anger, from joy. "Stop! No tickling!" 682 bellowed, but it was laughing so hard it could barely get the words out. SCP-999 had turned the most dangerous creature in the Foundation, a being of pure hatred and destruction, into a laughing, happy, playful creature through nothing but tickles and affection. The tickle fight continued for several minutes. 682, laughing, rolling around, acting like a giant puppy. Eventually, the reptile seemed to tire out and fell asleep, still with a smile on its face. For 15 minutes, everything was peaceful. The researchers couldn't believe it. They had actually done it. They had neutralized 682's aggression with nothing but an orange blob of happiness. They sent in 2 D-Class personnel to retrieve SCP-999. The 2 men carefully entered the cell, picked up the still bouncing blob, and carried it out successfully. The door closed. And then 682 woke up. The smile was gone. In its place was the usual expression of pure hatred, but somehow worse. The creature stood up and released a powerful psychic wave from its entire body while laughing maniacally. Everyone in the area started laughing uncontrollably. But this wasn't happy laughter. This was painful, uncontrollable laughter that made it impossible to breathe, impossible to think. Guards dropped their weapons. Researchers fell to the floor, clutching their stomachs, and 682 escaped. During the breach, SCP-999 didn't hide or run away. The little blob moved through the facility, finding terrified personnel and directing them to safe areas. It rescued as many people as it could, while armed response teams worked to recontain 682. Eventually, they managed to capture the reptile again. The damage was severe, multiple casualties, millions in facility damage. It was classified as one of the worst containment breaches in recent history. But here's the interesting part. After the incident, do you know what SCP-999 wanted to do? It wanted to play with 682 again. It showed no fear of the creature that had just killed dozens of people. It just wanted its new friend back. And 682? When researchers asked it about SCP-999, the reptile called it names I can't repeat here and demanded never to see it again. But some researchers swear they detected something in 682's voice when it said that, not anger, but maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit of fondness. As if, for just a moment, 682 had felt something other than hatred, and it didn't know how to process that. The experiment was deemed a failure, but it proved something important. SCP-999's power was real. It could affect even the most hateful, violent creature in existence, even if just for a moment. Now, here's where things get really interesting. There's a theory about SCP-999, a theory about what it really is and why it exists. The theory goes like this. There's something called the Scarlet King, an ancient, powerful entity that exists to destroy, to bring about the end of everything. The king has 7 children, each one a tool of destruction. But the 7th child, the 7th son, was different. Instead of being born as a weapon of destruction, it was born as something else, something that could oppose its father, something that represented everything the Scarlet King hated: joy, love, kindness, and hope. According to this theory, SCP-999 is that 7th child, and one day, when it's fully grown, it will face its father and attempt to change the Scarlet King's heart, to convince it that life is worth preserving, not destroying. Is this theory true? Nobody knows. The SCP Foundation doesn't have all the answers. But what they do know is this: SCP-999 is still young. It's still growing. And as it grows, its powers grow stronger too. Some researchers believe that SCP-999 isn't just making people happy, it's actually absorbing their pain, their trauma, their negative emotions, taking them into itself so that others can heal. And if that's true, then inside that cheerful, bouncing blob is every nightmare, every fear, every painful memory of everyone it's ever helped. Can you imagine that? Carrying the weight of everyone's suffering and still choosing to be happy, still choosing to spread joy. That's what makes SCP-999 special. That's why even the hardest, most cynical researchers in the Foundation smile when they see it bouncing down the hallway. Why, even in a place filled with nightmares, there's one room where laughter is always welcome. Let me tell you one more story. This one's not in the official files, but it's something that researchers whisper about. There was a researcher, let's call her Dr. Sarah. She had been with the Foundation for 15 years. She had seen things that broke other people. She had lost friends to containment breaches. She had documented horrors that most people couldn't even imagine. She was good at her job, maybe too good. She never showed emotion, never got attached, never let anything affect her. Until one day, she just couldn't do it anymore. She was found sitting in her office, staring at the wall, tears running down her face. She wasn't responding to anyone. She had finally hit her breaking point. All those years of trauma had caught up with her at once. The facility's psychological team tried to help her. Therapy, medication, everything. Nothing worked. She just sat there, lost in her own mind, reliving every horrible thing she had ever seen. Then someone had an idea. they brought SCP-999 to her office. At first, nothing happened. Sarah didn't even acknowledge that the blob was there. SCP-999 sat in the corner of the room, just watching her. And then, slowly, it started to move closer. It didn't bounce excitedly like it usually did. It moved carefully, gently, as if it understood that this person needed something different. It reached Sarah and carefully, very carefully, touched her hand. Sarah blinked. She looked down at the orange blob touching her. And then she did something she hadn't done in 15 years. She cried, really cried. Not the silent tears she had been shedding, but deep, painful sobs. SCP-999 just held her hand and made soft, gurgling sounds, comforting sounds. And Sarah cried for hours, cried out every bit of pain she had been holding inside. When she finally stopped, exhausted and empty, SCP-999 climbed into her lap and nuzzled against her. And for the first time in months, Sarah smiled. She spent the next week in her office with SCP-999. They colored together, played simple games. SCP-999 would bring her candy and make happy sounds when she ate it. Slowly, bit by bit, Sarah came back to herself. She returned to work a month later. She never forgot what she had seen. The trauma didn't disappear, but she could carry it now. She could function. She could live. All because a blob of orange slime showed her that it was okay to feel, okay to hurt, and okay to let someone help you heal. Now, SCP-999 lives in its special containment room, but calling it containment doesn't feel right. It's more like a home. The creature is allowed to roam freely around the facility between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. It has to return to its pen at night for its own safety and to sleep, but during the day, it goes wherever it wants. You might see it bouncing through the cafeteria, begging for candy from researchers eating lunch. You might find it in the break room, watching cartoons on the TV and making happy sounds at the funny parts. You might see it visiting other safe-class SCPs, spreading joy to anomalies that are just as lonely as the humans who guard them. And whenever there's a containment breach, whenever alarms start blaring and people start running, you'll find SCP-999 moving against the crowd. Moving toward the danger, not to fight, but to find anyone who might be scared or hurt and comfort them. The Foundation has rules about getting attached to SCPs. Researchers are supposed to remain professional, detached, scientific. But nobody follows that rule with SCP-999. How could they? It's impossible not to love something that loves everyone so completely, so unconditionally. In a place designed to contain monsters, SCP-999 reminds everyone that not all anomalies are threats. That sometimes the most powerful thing in the world isn't destruction or control or fear. Sometimes the most powerful thing is simple kindness. So the next time you're having a bad day, when everything feels heavy and dark and hopeless, remember the Tickle Monster. Remember that somewhere out there in a secret facility, there's a blob of orange slime that would give anything to make you smile. That carries the pain of hundreds of people and still chooses joy. That faces down the most dangerous creatures in existence with nothing but love and playfulness. And maybe, just maybe, we could all learn something from that. Maybe we could all try to be a little more like SCP-999. Choose kindness over cruelty. Choose joy over despair. Choose to help others heal instead of adding to their pain. Because, in the end, that's what makes SCP-999 so special. It's not its anomalous properties. It's not its ability to create euphoria. It's the simple fact that in a world full of darkness, it chooses to be light. And that, more than anything else, is why they call it the Tickle Monster. Not because it's scary, but because it reminds us all that even in the darkest places, even when facing the worst horrors imaginable, there's still room for laughter. There's still room for happiness. There's still room for hope. Thank you for listening to the story of SCP-999. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow for more stories from the SCP Foundation. And remember, not everything behind locked doors is trying to hurt you. Sometimes, just sometimes, It's trying to help you heal. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and maybe, just maybe, try to spread a little joy today. The world could use more Tickle Monsters.